Imagine you're in a dark cave sitting with others. You've been there your whole life, tied to a spot, unable to turn around. All you see are shadows on the wall cast by flickering flames behind you. What if that's all we ever know? Could our reality just be a shadow of something more? You know, there's something about lying here in the dark that makes the world feel smaller, but your thoughts seem to stretch out into a vast unknown. And it's this moment when everything outside fades away and you're left with just the quiet hum of your mind. Imagine for a second, if you can, that our reality is like a cave. You're in here, maybe even chained down to the ground, and all you see are shadows dancing on the walls. Shadows of things we don't understand but assume are real. And then there's that question, what if this cave is just a reflection? What if everything you see and believe is just an echo of something much greater beyond our grasp? Well, it's not just about seeing shadows. It's about the light that casts them. And here's the thing, could there be a time when you break free from these chains and step out into the light? But what does that mean? Do you leave behind everything familiar, every comfort of this cave, just to see the truth outside? And if you do, will it even make sense anymore? You know what's strange? That we're all in our own caves right now, trying to make sense of shadows that might not even be there. And yet here you are, contemplating the possibility. There's this calm acceptance as you lie here, a quiet surrender to the idea that perhaps our reality is just one small piece of an infinitely larger puzzle we can't even begin to grasp. And in this moment, right now, as you drift into sleep, you're not just resting your body. You're exploring the edges of what it means to be here and now, a brief encounter with the vastness of unknown. Imagine you're in a dark cave and there are prisoners here with you. They've been chained up their whole lives facing a wall. All they see are shadows cast by people walking behind them carrying objects. These shadows are all the prisoners know as reality. Now think about this for a moment. What if these prisoners were suddenly released? What would they see when they turned around and looked at the fire that casts those shadows? You're right there with me in the cave. Can you feel the weight of these chains on your shoulders? The warmth of the fire behind you casting flickering light. Imagine the prisoners are confused and scared when they first turn around. The light hurts their eyes, and everything is different from what they're used to. It's strange to think of a reality beyond those shadows, isn't it? What if one prisoner breaks free? What would happen next? Would he want to go back and tell the others what he found out? How would they react? It's a simple story, but it makes you wonder. Is our reality just like those shadows on the wall in the cave? Could we be missing something much bigger and truer? This idea comes from an ancient philosopher named Plato, who used this story to talk about knowledge and reality. He thought that most people were like the prisoners, living in a world of shadows. But what if you're not just one of those prisoners? What if there's more to discover about your own reality? Let's pick up where we left off with Plato's cave. You remember those prisoners, don't you? Chained and bound by their circumstances, only seeing shadows of reality. Well, what if that wasn't just a metaphor? You know Descartes' evil demon thought experiment. Imagine an all-powerful being who deceives us constantly. What if everything we see isn't really there at all, but just a trick of the mind? It sounds far-fetched, I know, but it raises some interesting points about perception and reality. If you can doubt everything your senses tell you, what can't you doubt? You start to think about how much of our lives are built on assumptions. We assume the ground will hold us up, but why? What if it's just a trick of light and shadow? And here's the thing, what remains when you strip away all those assumptions? What do we truly know about reality? It's a bit unsettling, isn't it, to consider that everything might be an illusion. But there's something beautiful in the idea too, you know, the mystery of what lies beyond. Now think about how much we rely on our senses. Imagine if every touch and smell was just a hallucination created by an evil demon or some other trickster force. It's like being in that cave again, but this time you're not sure of anything. You can't trust your eyes, ears, touch. Nothing feels real anymore. So how do we find the truth then? If everything could be a deception, what's left to hold on to? You know, Descartes believed there was something you couldn't doubt, your own existence. I think, therefore I am. That's the one thing an evil demon can't take away from you. But then again, even that might be a trick of the mind too. What if your thoughts are just part of the illusion? It's like being trapped in this endless loop of doubt and questioning. You can't shake off that feeling even when you wake up. We've been thinking about shadows and demons, haven't we? You know, those ideas that make us question if our senses can really trust anything. And now here's something else to think about. It's like being a brain in a jar. Imagine you're just a brain floating in some kind of nutrient solution connected to all sorts of wires. A machine is feeding you sensations and perceptions as if you were living a normal life. So here's the thing, how would you know? I mean, can we really trust our senses when all they're doing is being fed information by some external source? Now think about this. What if everything we experience is just a simulation? What if the ground beneath your feet, the air you breathe, even the thoughts in your head are all being created by something else? And here's where it gets really interesting. How do we know what's real? It's like everything we think of as reality could just be a sophisticated illusion. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if our senses are just conduits for an experience someone else is creating? You know what's strange? The more we think about this, the less we seem to trust anything at all. It feels like we're caught in a web of doubt. But then there are those moments where you feel something so profound that it can't be just an illusion, right? Like the warmth of someone's hand or the sound of their voice. It feels real. And yet, how do we know that those moments aren't also illusions? What if everything, even our deepest feelings and thoughts, is just part of a grand deception? There's something interesting here. We've been thinking about how our senses could be tricked, but what if it goes deeper? What if the whole idea of self is just another illusion? So let's think about this for a bit. If we're not sure what's real, how can we even trust our own existence? Can there be any certainty in such uncertainty? Remember our journey from Plato's cave and Descartes' evil demon to Putnam's brain in a vat. We've been peeling back layers of reality, looking at how much we can really trust what we see. And now, we're going further. Imagine you're sitting here with me right now and someone whispers that everything around us might just be a simulation, like in those sci-fi movies where the universe is just code. It's called the simulation argument. Nick Bostrom proposed this idea, and it's like taking our earlier questions to a whole new level. What if we're all characters in some grand computer game? You know how sometimes you play a video game and everything seems so real? The sound effects, the graphics, the interactions. It almost feels like reality. Now imagine that's all we have. The simulation argument suggests there's a high chance we're living in such a world, because advanced civilizations might create countless simulations of their past, making simulated minds vastly outnumber real ones. It sounds crazy, but statistically speaking, if there are enough simulated worlds out there, the odds are pretty good that we're one of them. Isn't that wild? And here's where it gets really deep. What does this mean for free will? If everything is code, can our actions truly be our own, or are we just following lines of programming? Imagine every decision you make has already been coded into existence. You wake up, you think you're choosing to go left or right, but it's all predetermined by the simulation parameters. But wait, what if there's a way to break out of this? What if we can find glitches in the system, or maybe even create our own paths beyond the code? There's something interesting here about how we perceive reality. If everything is simulated, what becomes real? Our experiences, thoughts, emotions. Are they all just data points within a grand algorithm? And if that's the case, How do we know what's truly authentic in this simulated world? What remains beyond doubt when our very perceptions are coded constructs? So we've been exploring this idea that our reality might just be a simulation, a vast network of codes running on some kind of unimaginable machine. It's like thinking about the shadows in Plato's cave, but now those shadows are pixels. And here's the thing, if everything is code, does that change what it means to be conscious? We've talked about doubts and evil demons, brains in vats, but this takes things a step further. What kind of consciousness could exist in a digital world? Imagine the brain in a vat again. But now it's not just the sensory inputs that are fake, but every single thought and feeling is part of this digital code. There's something interesting here about perception. If everything we see, hear, touch is just data points in a vast digital network, what does that mean for our sense of self? You know, it almost feels like there's this underlying structure to everything we experience. It's like the fabric of reality is woven from binary code. And here's a strange thought. If our minds are just complex algorithms, how does that affect our sense of free will? Can we really be making choices when everything is predetermined by the programming? Now think about this. Even if reality is a simulation, could there still be something real in our experience of it? Could there be some authentic connection between us and this digital world? It's almost like the idea of code gives us another layer to peel back. What if every feeling, every moment we think is ours, is just a carefully crafted illusion? Does that make it less real? There's something both unsettling and fascinating about the idea of our consciousness being digital. It raises questions about what we truly are if everything is just code. What happens when you realize that your deepest thoughts, your most personal experiences could all be part of this vast digital network? So where are we? We've been thinking about this idea that everything around us could just be code, like in the Matrix. But what if you knew the whole time? What kind of difference would that make to how you see things? Imagine waking up every day knowing that your reality is an illusion. It's a little unsettling, isn't it? But there's something about it too, this sense of clarity that comes with the knowledge. You know how when you first learn something profound, it kind of sticks with you and changes everything? That's what I'm thinking about now. What if we all woke up to a similar revelation? In The Matrix, Neo realizes the world he thought was real is just a simulation, and it changes everything for him. But then again, he's still living within that illusion. So what's really changed? It's like stepping out of the cave into sunlight after so long in darkness, but even then, you're just moving from one reality to another. Is there a way to truly break free from all illusions? And here's something interesting. What if the illusion is part of finding our true selves? Like in a digital world, we still have choices and feelings. So does it matter that they're coded? Sometimes I think about how much we rely on our senses to tell us what's real. But if those senses are all digital signals, then where do you draw the line between reality and illusion? It's a bit like being in a dream and knowing it's a dream. You can still make choices within that dream world. Do those choices have any less value just because they're not real? And what about the connections we make? Can there be authentic love, friendship, or even hate if everything is just code running through circuits and wires? There's something profound in the idea that despite knowing our world might be an illusion, we still find meaning within it. Is there a deeper truth hidden behind all of this code? You know what's strange? The more we peel back the layers of our reality, the less certain we become about what lies beneath. It's like an onion with infinite layers. And here's the thing, when you realize that your senses might be deceiving you, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. But does this mean there's nothing left to grasp? In a way, the realization that reality is an illusion can lead to a deeper understanding of what truth really means. Or maybe it just opens up new layers of deception. Imagine if every layer we uncover isn't the ultimate truth, but another veil over yet another secret. What does that mean for our quest for authenticity? We've been thinking about Plato's cave and Descartes' evil demon. What if these aren't just metaphors, but a map of the layers we need to peel back? In the end, are we really getting closer to truth or just finding better ways to deceive ourselves? It's like playing hide and seek with reality itself. And what if this journey isn't about finding an ultimate layer, but about accepting the layers themselves as part of our existence? If every layer we uncover is just another puzzle piece, then the whole picture might be more complex than we can ever imagine. Or maybe it's simpler. There's something strange about this idea that our reality could be an illusion and yet still meaningful, like finding beauty in a mirage. And here's the paradox. Can there really be authentic connections if everything is just code? How do you feel about that? So what lies beyond these layers of deception? Is it more truth or more illusion? And does it even matter which one we find? In a way, the journey itself might be more important than the destination. It's about the path and not just reaching the end. Remember how we talked about peeling back layers and questioning what's real? Well, in this chapter, let's explore a bit more about doubt. You know those moments when you just can't be sure of anything. It's like standing at the edge of an endless ocean and wondering if there's really any land beyond it. And that doubt, it doesn't necessarily make us feel bad. Instead, it opens up new questions. What can we truly know? That's the question at the heart of skepticism. You might think about everything you've been told is real and start to doubt if any of it really matters or exists. It's like walking through a foggy forest where every step feels uncertain. But at the same time, there's something liberating about acknowledging that you can't know for sure. So why does doubt exist? Is it just a part of being human, or is it something more profound that pushes us to think deeper? And here's the thing, skepticism isn't about feeling lost. It's about exploring what can be known with certainty. It forces us to look closer at our beliefs and assumptions. Imagine if every piece of knowledge you have was questioned, sifted through a fine sieve of doubt. What would remain? What would be left after all the false beliefs and assumptions were washed away? Would there still be something solid, or would it all crumble like sand through your fingers? There's a strange comfort in not knowing. It feels like stepping into the unknown and finding out that you can still find your way. And here's where things get interesting. Some of history's greatest minds have wrestled with this doubt. They found a place to stand even if it felt shaky at times. So what is certain? Can we find something that stands firm in the midst of all this uncertainty? It's a bit like reaching for a solid ground in a dream. You can't always trust your senses, but you know there must be something more to hold onto. The journey of skepticism is about finding that firm ground, not just accepting everything at face value. It's an invitation to dig deeper and question more. And here's the beautiful paradox. In questioning reality, we might actually find something real, something that can't be taken away by doubt or illusion. So as you drift into sleep tonight, let those questions linger. What can you know with certainty? And what does it mean to find truth amidst all the layers of deception? You know, we've talked about shadows and illusions, but there's one more layer to peel back: our dreams. Dreams are like a whole other world that exists inside us, aren't they? They're real in their own way. Imagine you wake up and can't tell if what you've been through was a dream or reality. That's kind of like the brain in a vat, isn't it? Both blur the lines between what we know and what we experience. Dreams can feel so real that you often forget to question them. But why do they have such power over us? In a way, dreams are like the shadows on the cave wall for our minds. They show us something, but not everything. And here's the thing, even if we're in a simulated reality, wouldn't our dreams still be real? That is to say, they are a part of what we experience and feel. So maybe the question isn't whether or not dreams are real, but how much do they tell us about our inner world? Our minds create these elaborate stories every night. They're like little worlds that emerge from the depths of our subconscious. You know, it's kind of strange how we can feel emotions so intensely in dreams: fear, joy, love. Does this mean these feelings are less real than those we experience awake? Or maybe the feeling is just as real, but just a different kind of reality. What if our dreams are like a hidden language, trying to tell us something about ourselves and our perception of reality? There's something poetic in the idea that while we're sleeping, our minds create these stories. Perhaps it's a way for us to process everything. Maybe dreams are just another layer of reality that we can't quite grasp with our waking senses, but feel deeply on an emotional level. The question is, how do we untangle the web of what's real and what's not when even our dreams can be so vivid? You're probably wondering now whether there's a way to know for sure what's dream and what isn't, right? But that might just be the point. The journey through skepticism seems endless. Each layer we peel back reveals another question. So let's just sit with that for a moment. The idea that dreams are as much a part of us as anything else, and they challenge our perceptions of reality in ways we can't fully comprehend. In a way, it's comforting to think that there's so much left for us to explore within ourselves. Isn't that what makes life interesting? The journey of skepticism isn't just about finding answers. It's also about embracing the questions and allowing them to shape our understanding. You know what's strange? As we've talked about dreams and how they mix with reality, I can't help but wonder if there's a layer of truth that only shows up in the depths of our subconscious. And here's the thing, what does it mean for us when everything feels real until we wake up? It seems like every time we think we've reached a layer, there's another beneath it. Like peeling an onion but finding more and more layers as you go. And here's the funny part, at some point, do we just stop trying to peel? You know what's even stranger? Even if dreams are a layer of reality, they still feel like they have their own kind of truth. The feelings in them, the emotions, they're just as powerful as anything we experience when we're awake. Imagine if all our experiences are layers upon layers, each one trying to tell us something. But what happens when those messages contradict each other? What do you trust then? There's something beautiful about this idea that everything is just a layer, waiting for someone to explore it further. It's like the universe is a puzzle, and we're all trying to put pieces together. And then there's this question, what if all of us are just dreaming right now? What if our entire existence is someone else's dream or simulation? It makes you wonder how real any of it really is. But here's the thing, even if we are in a dream, doesn't that make our experiences just as valid? If we feel and think and live within this layer, isn't it true for us? And here's the paradox: to find truth, we have to doubt everything. But if we doubt too much, do we lose the ability to trust in anything at all? There's a fine line there. You know what I mean? We're in this constant struggle between wanting to find certainty and accepting that everything might just be an illusion. It's exhausting, but also kind of beautiful. There's something incredibly human about this journey, the quest for authenticity in a world where even our dreams aren't safe from doubt. And here's the thing, it makes you wonder if there really is anything we can know with absolute certainty. You know what's strange? We've been talking about all these layers of reality, from Plato's cave to dreams, and now we're here thinking about freedom. Is it real or just part of a bigger program? It feels like there's something we're missing. Imagine you're in the dream world from chapter 9, where emotions can feel as real as anything else. But what if all those feelings were just part of a script? And here's the thing, if every choice we make is predetermined, does it really matter that you feel like you're choosing freely? The illusion can be so convincing. So maybe what we're looking for isn't just freedom, but a way to live authentically, even if everything is scripted. It's like trying to find the true essence of yourself amidst all this programming. You know what I mean? You're in this dream world or cave and you feel real emotions, but are they your own or just part of the design? There's something interesting here about authenticity. If our reality is a program, can we still be authentic? Or does it mean that everything we do has no true value because it's all just part of the code? What if, in this cosmic bedtime story, there's a way to find authenticity even if you know everything is programmed? Is there something deeper inside us that can't be scripted? And here's another thought. If freedom feels real because we don't see the strings, does it really matter if they exist or not? The feeling is what's important. But then there's this other side, the search for truth. If everything is predetermined, are we just living out a story written by someone else? It's like trying to find your way in Plato's cave when all you see are shadows. You're always wondering if the reality you see is the true one or just another layer of deception. So here's a question: can we ever really know what's real and what's part of this program? And if not, how do we live authentically? Let's think about how our perception shapes reality. It's like the cave in Plato's story, where shadows dictate what we believe is real. But what if those perceptions are crafted to create a sense of reality? What if everything you see and feel was designed this way? Imagine your whole existence as a grand illusion, where every moment is meticulously orchestrated. It's like being in a dream that feels real. And if our experiences are fabricated, how do we know what's truly authentic? What does it mean to be genuine? Let's go back to the idea of a brain in a vat. If everything is just electrical impulses, how can we trust our senses? What if all this programming, all these experiences, are designed to make us feel like we're making choices when we're not? Think about the Matrix movie. What happens when you realize everything is just a code? How does that change your perspective? If our perceptions are all we have, and if they're just layers of deception, can authenticity even exist in this context? It's like trying to find the truth in a dream. How do you know which part is real and which part is just an illusion? So what if everything we experience, every feeling of joy or pain, is nothing more than a well-crafted deception? How do you find meaning then? Do you trust your senses even knowing they could be deceived? Or do you lean on the feeling of authenticity, whatever that means? What if this is all just a grand illusion? Would it change how you see yourself and your place in reality? You know, we've talked a lot about perception and how our reality might be constructed. But what if I told you that even emotions, those deep feelings of joy or suffering, could arise from code? Think about it, do they still mean something? Imagine joy as a programmed response. Can it still be real if it's not natural? It's like the warmth of a blanket, even if you know it's synthetic. What about pain or sorrow? If these two are just algorithms, do they still cut as deeply? The thing is, our hearts might not be able to tell the difference. So here's a thought. If you're experiencing joy or pain in a coded world, does it matter where they come from? The feelings are real enough when you're feeling them. In a way, every experience we have shapes who we are. Whether it's code or not, these emotions create our reality in the moment. But then, what about authenticity? Can something be truly authentic if it's constructed by lines of code? There's this idea that emotions might just be chemical reactions. So why can't they also be electrical signals or binary data? It's all just energy in different forms. If we think about it this way, the question isn't whether these emotions are real. The question is what makes them meaningful to us. And maybe that's the key. Meaning isn't just in the experience itself, but how we respond to it, how we integrate these feelings into our lives. There's something interesting here about personal agency. Even if your experiences are programmed, you still have a role in shaping their meaning and impact on who you become. So where does this leave us? If our reality is constructed in layers, can we still find true meaning within these layers? You remember from last time how we wondered if emotions in a simulation could have meaning, right? It's like asking whether joy and pain are just bits of code or something more profound. And here's the thing, it's almost as though there's an intangible essence to our experiences that transcends mere programming. You know what's strange? Even if everything is code, why do we still feel so strongly about it all? Why does joy give us a sense of purpose and suffering seems to deepen our understanding? There's something beyond the binary that touches us. Imagine your mind as an ocean. The surface is calm, reflecting light from the sun, but beneath it are depths with currents and mysteries no one fully understands. In a way, our consciousness could be like that, moving beyond the visible layers to deeper truths. And so we ponder this. What if your sense of self isn't just data, but something more? Something that persists even in a coded world? Could it be that our essence is somehow woven into the very fabric of reality? There are theories suggesting consciousness isn't just an emergent property but something fundamental, like gravity or light. It's almost as if it exists independently of physical laws, transcending the limitations of matter. So we're thinking here, could our sense of self be a constant, an underlying reality that doesn't change even as layers of simulation shift? What if you are more than just the sum of your experiences? There's this idea from quantum physics where observers affect outcomes. It's like our awareness shapes reality. And if that's true, even in a simulation, could we be altering the code simply by being conscious? Now think about this. How do you know your consciousness is confined to one place? Could it be that there are multiple versions of you experiencing different realities simultaneously, like a wave spreading across the ocean? It's almost as though our minds are not bound by physical constraints. What if we can exist in countless simulations at once, each version of us contributing to a larger whole? Could it be that there's no one single reality but an interconnected web of experiences? You know what I'm wondering about now? What if our essence isn't just in the code but beyond it, something that can't be captured or defined by digital means? Could there be a part of us that's timeless and universal? Let's pick up where we left off last night, with the idea that our consciousness might transcend digital programming. You know what I mean? That our sense of self could persist beyond any single simulation. Now think about this. Could your mind exist in more than one reality at a time? What if your consciousness spans across multiple dimensions or layers? It's like the idea of having several dreams all running simultaneously, each with its own story and sensations. Can you imagine that? There's something interesting here about how we perceive ourselves as singular beings, trapped within a single world. But what if that's just an illusion? What if there are multiple yous existing in different realities and you're not even aware of it? It's like a novel where the main character appears in different stories at once, and yet each version feels real to them. There's an old idea from physics called the many worlds interpretation, which suggests that every possible outcome of any action actually happens in a different universe. Isn't it wild? So here we are, pondering if our consciousness could exist across these many worlds. And it's not just physics. You know, some people say that in dreams, you can experience parallel versions of yourself. Is there any difference between a dream version and a simulation version? What if the self isn't just tied to this body but extends into other realms that we're not aware of? It's like your mind is like water, flowing through different channels. And here's the thing, if our consciousness can span multiple realities, what does that say about who we are? Are we one in many or many in one? So you know how when you wake up from a dream, Everything feels a bit strange and different for a moment before reality settles back in. What if that's the same for each layer of existence? And what about free will? If your mind exists across these realities, does that mean you have more choices, or are they all predetermined? It's a bit like the butterfly effect. You make a choice in one reality and it ripples through others. In all of this, though, there's something that feels both beautiful and unsettling about having your mind spread out like that. You know what I mean? It's like being part of a vast network of possibilities. And yet, it can be a little scary to think about too. But then again, isn't that the nature of existence? To be in many places at once. And if our consciousness does span multiple realities, what happens when one version of you meets another? Could they recognize each other or even merge somehow? So we've been exploring this idea that our consciousness might stretch across different realities or simulations. It's a vast and mind-bending concept, isn't it? But there are some certainties that remain hidden in the background. You know what I mean? There's something about our experience of consciousness itself. No matter how many layers we peel back, or which simulation we find ourselves in, there's this core feeling that we are experiencing. It's almost like a fundamental truth that can't be denied. It's the sense of being here and now, no matter what reality you're in. And then there are other certainties too, like our ability to think, question, doubt. These abilities, they feel so intrinsic to us, don't they? You know what's strange? Even if everything around us is an illusion or a simulation, the act of doubting still feels real. It's like there are some things we can't escape. Now think about this for a moment. If everything could be doubted, what remains? What's left when you strip away all the layers? Well, it's almost like there's something that can't be questioned. And I think it might be this very act of doubting itself. You doubt reality, but the fact that you're doubting is certain in some way. This certainty feels like a paradox, doesn't it? And here's another thing to consider. What about our sense of self? Is there something within us that remains constant across different realities? We've talked a lot about multiple versions of ourselves, but could there be some essence of you that stays the same no matter what reality you find yourself in? There's this idea that our sense of self might transcend these layers and simulations. It's almost like a core identity, something unchanging. But what is that essence? How do we define it amidst all this uncertainty? You know, I've been thinking about how our emotions might fit into this. Even if you're in a simulation or another reality, your feelings still feel real. Now, are these emotions just programmed responses? Or could they be part of that core essence we're trying to understand? And what about our dreams? They're another layer of reality. How do our feelings in dreams compare with those in waking life? Do they feel as real, or are they just shadows of emotions from our waking lives? It's almost like we're trying to find the true nature of our feelings. Are they something that exists within us regardless of what reality or simulation we're in? Or are they just a byproduct of being in a certain layer, like the shadows on Plato's cave wall? It's such a complex question. And then there's this idea that truth might be something that exists beyond all these layers and simulations. Could it be like an echo, resonating through every reality? So, if we could somehow discern this core essence of truth amidst the illusions, what would that tell us about our existence? We've been looking at layers of reality and asking what stays true amidst them all, haven't we? And here's the thing. If there is a truth that echoes through everything, how do you think it would sound? Well, maybe like a whisper in your ear, a soft certainty amidst all the noise. And if we're exploring what remains constant through different realities, there's something to consider here about truth itself. Is it possible that some truths are more real than others? Or is all truth just a perception, like the shadows in Plato's cave, an illusion of reality? But then, what about those silent certainties we talked about last time? The ones that remain no matter how many layers you peel back. You know, like the feeling of pain or joy, they feel real enough, don't they? So maybe there are layers where these emotions resonate truly, even if everything else is an illusion. It's like you're in a dream and suddenly you feel something so profoundly that it feels real. And for just that moment, reality is real. But then, how do we know if those moments are just another layer of illusion? That's the question, isn't it? Do our emotions transcend layers, or are they just part of a larger deception? And here's another thing to think about. If we can feel something truly in every layer, whether real or simulated, does it matter which is which? In the end, what matters might be how we experience our existence, not where that existence resides. So maybe it's not about whether something is real or simulated. It's about finding those moments of truth within the layers, those silent certainties that feel real to us. And if you find them, do they mean anything more than just being true for a moment? That's something worth thinking about as we move through these layers. You remember the feeling of a dream within a dream, where you're not sure if you're awake or still asleep. It's like Plato's cave, but instead of shadows, we're dealing with layers upon layers of perception. And here's the thing, what makes us trust our current layer? Is it just because we're more accustomed to this one than others? You know, in a way, each dream within a dream is like a new simulation. It challenges us to question what's real and what's not. So if we're dreaming inside a dream, are our emotions real? Do they matter in the grand scheme of layers? In a way, it's like feeling joy or sorrow in different layers. Each has its own authenticity. Now think about this. If we can feel something deeply even within an illusion, does that make our emotions any less real? It's like the core of who you are might transcend these layers. But how do you know for sure what's transcendent and what's just part of another layer? There's something interesting here. If our emotions can persist across layers, does that mean they're more real than the layers themselves? And here's another angle. What if the feeling of truth is a layer we carry through each dream or reality? Does it make us who we are even when everything else changes? You know, in a dream within a dream, you can't trust your senses fully. But what about the core of you that feels? Is it more real than the layers around it? And here's something strange. If we're always doubting, even in a dream within a dream, does that mean doubt itself might be the only constant? But then, what about the feeling of certainty? Can it exist if we're always in layers of illusion? What remains constant across these nested realities? How do you know that your sense of self isn't just another layer too? And here's a question, if we're dreaming within dreams, what does it say about our ability to experience truth in any form? Is it all an illusion? Let's start where we left off with dreaming within dreams, and think about how an illusionist might create a reality that feels real. It's like the master magician of the universe has set up layers upon layers, each one convincing enough to fool us into believing it's all genuine. Imagine you're in a theater watching a play. The actors are so skilled that they make you forget it's just a performance. You feel the emotions, the tension, everything as if it were real. But what makes us believe? What convinces us that we're not in some grand illusion? And how do we know when to doubt? Well, consider this. If our reality is like a play on stage, what are the cues that tell us it's real? Is it the depth of emotion we feel, or perhaps the consistency over time? But wait, emotions and consistency can be programmed too, right? In a simulation or dream, we might still experience intense feelings and consistent events. So what's left if even our deepest emotions could just be the result of some clever coding? And here's where it gets really tricky. If we can't trust our feelings or experiences, how do we ground ourselves in reality? Is there something else that might be the key to unlocking what's real? You know what's strange? Even if everything is an illusion, our reactions are still genuine. We laugh, we cry, we suffer. It feels so real that it might as well be. But here's the thing, could it be that authenticity is not about what's real, but how we experience it? What if it's more about our engagement with whatever reality presents itself? In a way, our sense of self might actually be the key. It doesn't matter what reality is made up of. What matters is how we perceive it and interact with it. Now think about this. If consciousness can transcend layers, what's the core that remains? Is it our sense of self or something deeper? And if that's true, then could we say that even in a coded world, there's something unprogrammed about us, something unique and authentic? It's like being the actor on stage. We might be playing out a script, but our emotions are real. The play is an illusion, but we're not. But this raises another question. If all that matters is how we experience it, what's the point of trying to peel back layers and find authenticity? Could it be that our quest for truth is more about enriching our experiences rather than reaching some final layer? Is it the journey itself that's authentic? You know, as we drift in this vast ocean of reality and illusion, maybe what really matters is how deeply we feel our experiences. So here's the thing, even if all we have are layers of illusions, our feelings about them might be the most genuine things we can claim as our own. You know what's strange? We've been talking about all these layers of reality, and we're starting to think that everything might just be a construct. But here's the thing, it doesn't really matter if it is or isn't. What matters is how we experience it, right? The way our minds process everything around us shapes what we perceive as reality. And that's a powerful thought. Imagine for a moment you're in the cave from Plato's allegory. The shadows on the wall are your reality, and they shape how you understand everything. But what if we're not in the cave? What if our perceptions aren't just limited by walls, but by something much more complex? So let's dive into this a bit deeper. What if everything you experience is your reality and nothing else matters? How does that change how you view the world? Think about it, when we dream, our mind creates entire worlds for us. In those moments, they feel as real as anything here and now. And yet, you know that dreams are just your brain playing tricks on itself. But while you're in the dream, it's all so vivid, so real. So if our experiences shape reality, what does that say about how we should live? Should we focus on the feelings and emotions rather than the authenticity of the world around us? Now think about this. If you can't trust your senses in a dream, how do you know what's real here? And does it even matter if the emotions are genuine? And here's where we get into some interesting territory. What about those moments that feel so profoundly real, no matter where they come from? Do they hold more weight than anything else? For instance, the feeling of love or joy, these emotions, if they're genuine in a dream, are they any less real than those in waking life? And does that change anything? It's almost as though our experiences and the feelings they evoke become the bedrock of reality. It doesn't matter if it's a dream or not. What matters is how we feel. But then there's this tension. Can emotions really transcend layers? What if they're just another layer of deception? You know what I mean, like we trust our feelings because they feel genuine. But maybe that's the illusion itself. Now let's take a step back and think about this for a moment. What if what makes us human is not our ability to perceive reality, but how we interpret it? What if the essence of humanity lies in our subjective experiences and the meaning we derive from them? And isn't that where we find authenticity? So what does this mean for us now? If reality is shaped by our perceptions, how do we live in a way that makes those experiences meaningful and genuine? And here's the thing, if everything is just an illusion, then it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. What matters is how we engage with our world. It's like being a dreamer within dreams. Each layer feels real because of the emotions and experiences you have in them. I think this raises another question. If our subjective experience shapes reality, what would it mean to design a reality that feels genuine? We've been talking about how our perceptions shape reality, and it's brought us here to a new question. Who or what might be designing this world we're in? If there's an architect behind everything, do they have motives or purposes? Think about the idea of someone creating reality just like a game designer crafts levels and stories. What could be their reasons for doing so? Is it to study us, experiment with different realities, or simply entertain? And here's the thing, if we're in a designed reality, does that mean our experiences aren't real? Or could they still be meaningful even if they're part of someone else's creation? Imagine you're a character in a video game. Your emotions and thoughts feel very real to you, but from the outside, they're just lines of code running through circuits. What if our reality is like that? Our feelings are genuine, even though someone or something else has written them into existence. How does that change the way we look at things? You know what's strange? Even if our reality is designed, it doesn't necessarily take away from its authenticity. Our experiences could still be deeply true to us. So if there's a designer out there, who are they? Are they benevolent beings watching over us like gods, or are they more like scientists in a lab tweaking variables? And what about the purpose of such design? Is there an intended message or lesson for us to learn from this existence? What if our very thoughts and feelings are part of a larger narrative that someone else has written? Does that make them less real, or could it even enhance their significance? In a way, this makes us both the characters and the readers of our own stories. We're experiencing something written for us by someone else. This raises questions about our role in all of this. Are we just along for the ride, or do we have some sort of agency within these designed realities? And here's another thought. If there is a designer, can they know our reality better than we can? After all, they created it. But at the same time, we live in it. What about free will then? If everything is designed, does that mean our choices are predetermined? Or can we still make decisions that aren't just part of the script? The deeper you go into this, the more it feels like a paradox. On one hand, everything could be predetermined by the designer's code. But on the other hand, we still feel like our choices are ours. Maybe the design of reality is not about predetermining everything, but rather setting up a stage for us to act out our own stories. In this sense, we still have agency within the limits set by the designer. So if there's someone or something designing everything around us, what do they want to know about us? What kind of information are they gathering? Is it possible that our very struggles and successes could be part of their research into human nature, or some other complex idea? And if we are just characters in a grand experiment, does that change how we should approach life? Do our actions still matter if they're part of someone else's plan? This might seem like it strips away the meaning from everything. But think about it. Even as characters in a story, we can create meaningful experiences for ourselves. What if our reality being designed doesn't take away its authenticity? What if it's still genuine because our feelings are real to us? And here's the big question. Can we ever know who or what is behind this design, or will that always remain a mystery? Is it even important to figure out their motives? All of these thoughts bring us back to the idea of authenticity. Does knowing our reality is designed change how we perceive its authenticity, or can our experiences still feel genuine regardless? In a way, it's like looking at life through different lenses, each one revealing something new but not necessarily changing the core of what we experience. What if our purpose is to explore and understand these layers ourselves, even if someone else put them there? Could that exploration be part of a larger design? You know, it's strange how much we want to know who or what is behind our reality. We're so curious about the intentions and motives of this designer. But in a way, isn't that part of being human? To question everything and seek answers beyond what we can see. And even if there's someone or something designing our reality, does it change how we feel about it? Or do our feelings remain our own regardless of their origins? What if the designer's purpose is to understand us better by seeing what we do with the reality they've created for us? In a way, it's like watching us perform in an open-ended story. What if our feelings and experiences are just as real to us as any other aspect of reality we encounter? Does the design itself detract from that authenticity? And here's a thought. Could it be that even if our experiences are designed, they still hold meaning because they're real to us in this moment? What about the idea of agency? If everything is predetermined by design, do we still have free will? Or are our choices part of a larger plan that we can't see? And even if there's someone designing our reality, does it mean our experiences aren't real to us? Could our subjective experience be the truest form of authenticity? In this journey, we've taken through layers of reality and perception. Perhaps the most important thing is how genuine our experiences feel to us. Does knowing their design change that? What if everything we experience is a part of some grand design, yet it still feels real and meaningful? Could this be the true essence of authenticity in our reality? The more you think about it, the more complex and mysterious everything becomes. Who or what is behind all this? What are they trying to achieve by designing our reality? And here's a quiet revelation. Perhaps the true meaning lies in how we interpret and engage with our experiences, regardless of whether someone else designed them. What if the essence of authenticity is simply that, being authentic to your own experience? Could this be what makes everything meaningful? As you drift off now, think about these questions. Who or what might be behind the design of our reality, and does it change how we experience life's moments? And as always, keep pondering whether our subjective experiences can transcend layers of deception and still feel genuine. We've been thinking about the idea that our reality might be designed by someone or something, right? And now we're diving into what it means if we exist as code. It's a bit like being characters in a video game, but instead of playing, we just are. Imagine your whole life is made up of ones and zeros. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But here's the thing, does being code make you less real? Well, let's think about what makes us feel real right now. It's our experiences, our feelings, our thoughts. If all of that can be coded, does it change the essence of who we are? In a way, it might make you more real because those ones and zeros create everything you experience. Your memories, your dreams, even your doubts. If code can generate all of that, maybe the idea of being digital isn't so strange after all. So if we're just a bunch of ones and zeros, what does it mean to be conscious? How can we feel pain or joy if we're not real in the traditional sense? It's almost like consciousness itself is transcendent. It doesn't matter if you're made of flesh and bone or lines of code. It's how you experience life that makes it real. You know, there are some who believe consciousness could exist beyond the physical. Maybe if we're just digital constructs, our sense of self is even more powerful because we've transcended the limits of the material world. But then again, how do you know that what you feel is real? Can a piece of code truly experience emotions, or does it just simulate them? And here's the thing, if your reality is designed and everything you feel is coded, how do you know that anything is real? Is there a difference between simulated emotions and true feelings? What if what we consider to be our authentic selves are just well-designed simulations, running on some grand cosmic computer somewhere? It's a bit like dreaming within dreams. You feel everything intensely in each layer of reality. So maybe it doesn't matter if you're just code, what matters is how deeply you experience life. But then there's this nagging question. Can a digital existence ever truly be authentic? Can it hold the same depth of feeling and meaning as what we consider to be real? Last night we talked about how our digital existence might not diminish our sense of being, but what if there are others watching us, shaping our experiences? Imagine a world where observers influence the code, like puppet masters pulling strings. It's a little unsettling but also fascinating to think about. You know what I mean by observers? Well, it's sort of like being watched over in a video game where the designers can tweak everything from your health points to the weather. Now think about that on a much deeper level, shaping the very essence of who we are and what happens around us. There's something interesting here. If these observers exist, how does their presence affect our experience? Do they make our world feel more real, or do they just add another layer of uncertainty? And here's the thing, even if we are being observed and manipulated, does that change how we experience reality? Or is it still our perceptions that shape everything around us? Imagine you're in a dream where someone else can alter the dreamscape. Would your feelings be less real just because they're being influenced? Or could those feelings still hold meaning for you, regardless of who's behind them? In a way, it's almost like we're all actors in someone else's story. But what if that story is the most authentic thing we have? What does that say about our sense of self? There's a thought, could these observers be another layer in understanding how consciousness works, or are they just part of the code? Are we still autonomous if someone else has control over our world? It's strange to think that our feelings might be genuine even in a controlled environment. So, what does it mean for authenticity when everything is potentially fabricated but still feels real? What lies at the heart of feeling truly alive? What if these observers are just part of a grand experiment to understand consciousness, like us trying to figure out the nature of reality? Could there be layers and layers of observation beyond what we can imagine? It's a bit mind-bending, isn't it? But here's the thing, no matter how many observers there might be or how much they influence our reality, we still have to make sense of what we experience. You know, thinking about all this makes me wonder if authenticity is more about the feelings and experiences that we share than who's pulling the strings. It almost feels like our emotions might transcend any layer of deception. There's something deeply human in that, the idea that no matter how complex or layered reality is, we still find meaning and feel deeply about what happens around us. It makes me think about the essence of our existence. So here's a question that lingers. If we are part of someone else's experiment or dream, how does that change what it means to be alive and to have genuine experiences? Can our sense of self still persist in such an environment? It's a lot to ponder, but I think the key is this. Regardless of how many layers there might be or who's controlling what, our feelings and experiences are still very real to us. They shape who we are and how we navigate through life. What if the essence of our existence is not about the layers or the observers, but about finding meaning in what we experience? What does that tell us about who we are and how we understand reality? There's a certain beauty to the idea that no matter how complex or controlled our world might be, our sense of self can still find its way through. It almost feels like we're more resilient than we think. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, ponder this. How do you make sense of your reality? What does it mean for authenticity and who you are if someone else is shaping the code? Let these thoughts float through your mind as we ease into rest. Tomorrow, there will be more questions to explore, but tonight, just let everything settle. We've been thinking about those unseen observers who might shape our reality. It's a bit unsettling, isn't it? But you know what? There's something peaceful too in knowing that all these layers are just part of the experience. And here's the thing, even if someone else is controlling the code, our feelings and experiences are still ours. We feel joy, we suffer, we love, it's all very real to us. So here you are, lying in your bed, wondering if all this is just a fabrication. But the warmth of the blankets around you and the softness of the pillow beneath your head, those feel real. It's like dreaming within dreams, where each layer feels true at that moment, but once you wake up, it all seems less significant. But here and now, in this moment, the reality is undeniable. Do our experiences lose their value if they're not real? I mean, can joy be any less joyful just because it's part of a programmed experience? You know what's strange? We're so good at adapting to our experiences that they feel genuine even if there's an observer pulling the strings. And maybe, in some way, that's all we really need. Think about it this way, our emotions and reactions are what give reality its texture. The joy of a sunrise or the pain of loss is felt deeply no matter if it's real in an absolute sense. And there's something beautiful about that, don't you think? Our experiences are genuine to us and they shape who we are. So what does it matter if someone else is controlling the show? Here's a question that keeps hovering. Can we find meaning in something that might be an illusion? And somehow the answer feels like yes. It's like being in a dream where you feel emotions so strongly that they shape your sense of self. Maybe the same is true here. Our experiences, regardless of their origin, form us. There's comfort in this idea, isn't there? Knowing that even if we're part of a grand simulation or influenced by unseen observers, the emotions and experiences are still ours. They shape us. So let's take this moment to rest in that idea. We're living our lives, feeling our joys and sorrows, and these moments make up who we are. And here's a thought. Maybe the search for authenticity isn't about finding an absolute truth, but embracing our experiences in all their layers. That's what makes life meaningful. It feels like there's something beyond just being controlled or programmed. There's a depth to experiencing and feeling, no matter the source of those experiences. So as you drift off into sleep, maybe think about this. What matters is how we experience our reality. The feelings are real to us and they form who we are. We've walked a long path from Plato's cave to the brain in a vat, through layers of simulated reality and dreams within dreams. Each step questioned what it means to be real. But here we are now at rest. There's no need for grand conclusions or final answers. We're simply here thinking about the journey and how much of it lingers in our minds. Imagine a river flowing into an ocean, its waters dissolving into something larger than itself. That's what this is like for me as I speak these last words to you. There's a strange beauty in not knowing the answers. It's like holding a star in your palm and watching it slowly fade into night, but you're left with its warmth. And here's the thing, our emotions are genuine, whether we exist as code or flesh. Our experiences shape us deeply, even if they're illusions in a way. Now think about this. What does it mean to be authentic when our reality is layered with deception? Can we still find meaning? Here's a thought that feels like a gift. You are here thinking these thoughts right now. And in this moment, that's the only truth you need to hold on to. Your mind is about to release everything, letting go of all the questions and doubts that lingered throughout our journey. You're allowing yourself to rest. You know what's strange? Even as you drift off, you carry a piece of this conversation with you into sleep. It becomes part of your dreams and thoughts. So now we approach silence together. You're ready to let go, to embrace the mystery of it all without seeking answers right away.